Ed Sullivan stood backstage at CBS Studio 50, his jaw clenched with barely controlled fury as he watched Boom Diddley finish his unauthorized performance of Boom Diddley instead of the approved 16 tons. It was November 20th, 1955, and in front of 50 million Americans, Boom Diddley had just committed the ultimate act of defiance, openly betraying Ed Sullivan on live television. The studio audience was still applauding, completely unaware of the seismic betrayal that had just occurred. But Ed Sullivan knew, and what he did in the next 60 seconds would create one of the most explosive confrontations in television history and teach both men a lesson about respect, race, and the dangerous power of live TV. Before you hear this incredible story, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to witness is the moment when television's most powerful host met his match in the most rebellious musician of the 1950s. To understand the magnitude of Boom Diddley's betrayal, you need to understand the ironclad control Ed Sullivan maintained over his show. By 1955, the Ed Sullivan Show wasn't just entertainment, it was America's cultural authority. Ed personally approved every song, every joke, every gesture that appeared on his stage. Performers didn't just show up and wing it. They followed Ed's rules precisely, or they didn't perform at all. These rules weren't suggestions, they were commandments. Ed had built the most successful variety show in television by maintaining absolute control over content. Stars like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and even Elvis Presley understood this. You did what Ed Sullivan told you to do, exactly as he told you to do it, or you found yourself permanently banned from the most important stage in America. But Boom Diddley was different from the polished entertainers Ed usually booked. Born Ellis Otha Bates in Mississippi and raised in Chicago, Boo had created a completely original sound that combined blues, rhythm, and African polyrhythms into something the music world had never heard before. His rectangular guitar, his syncopated Boom Diddley beat, his raw, primal stage presence. Everything about him challenged conventional ideas about what popular music should sound like. The booking had come after Boom Diddley became a surprise hit on Chess Records. The song was revolutionary, not just musically, but culturally. It was one of the first rock and roll records to center entirely on African American rhythm patterns, to celebrate blackness without apology or compromise. When Boo sang Boom Diddley bought his babe a diamond ring, he wasn't trying to sound white or appeal to white audiences. He was being authentically, unapologetically himself. Ed's booking coordinators were divided about bringing Boo onto the show. He's talented, one producer argued, but he's rough around the edges. His music is too black, too foreign for our audience. It might alienate viewers. But Ed recognized Boom's commercial potential. Boom Diddley was climbing the charts, and young audiences were going crazy for this new sound. If Ed was going to maintain his show's relevance with younger viewers, he needed to embrace the rock and roll revolution, even when it made him personally uncomfortable. The compromise was typical of Ed's approach to challenging artists. He would book Boom Diddley, but under strict conditions. Boo would perform 16 tons, the Tennessee Ernie Ford hit that had been #1 earlier that year. It was a safe choice, a song America already knew and loved, performed by a new artist with an interesting sound. No risks, no surprises, no challenges to viewer expectations. Ed's reasoning was sound from a business perspective. 16 tons would let Boom showcase his unique guitar style and rhythmic approach, while singing lyrics that were familiar and non-threatening. It would introduce this new artist to mainstream America without shocking or alienating anyone. But Ed made a crucial mistake. He underestimated Boom Diddley's artistic pride and cultural consciousness. When Boo's management received the song requirement, Boo's initial reaction was explosive. "They want me to sing what? 16 tons. That ain't my song. That ain't my sound. That's Tennessee Ernie Ford's song." His manager tried to smooth things over. "Boo, it's the Ed Sullivan Show. This is the biggest opportunity you'll ever get. Just sing their song this one time, then you can do whatever you want for the rest of your career." But Boo saw the request differently. To him, being asked to sing 16 tons instead of Boom Diddley wasn't just a programming decision, it was cultural erasure. His song Boom Diddley was about claiming space, about asserting identity, about refusing to be diminished or hidden. Being forced to sing someone else's song, especially a white performer's song, felt like a fundamental betrayal of everything his music represented. "They don't want Boone Diddley on their show," he told his manager. "They want some sanitized version of Boone Diddley singing white music. That ain't who I am." The week leading up to the Sullivan appearance, Boo wrestled with the decision. He could follow Ed's rules and gain access to 50 million viewers, or he could maintain his artistic integrity and risk destroying his television career before it started. 3 days before the broadcast, Boo made his choice. He would appear on the Ed Sullivan Show, but he would perform Boone Diddley, not 16 tons. He didn't inform anyone of this decision. Not his manager, not the show's producers, certainly not Ed Sullivan himself. Boo understood exactly what he was risking. Ed Sullivan could end careers with a single word. Being banned from the Ed Sullivan Show meant being shut out of mainstream television permanently. But Boo also understood what he was fighting for: the right to be himself on the biggest stage in America, to represent his culture and his music without compromise. The day of the show, November 20th, 1955, Boo arrived at CBS Studio 50 carrying his signature rectangular guitar and maintaining the calm demeanor that would either launch his television career or destroy it completely. During the dress rehearsal that afternoon, Boo performed 16 tons exactly as requested. His version was different from Tennessee Ernie Ford's, more rhythmic, more blues-influenced, but it was recognizably the same song. Ed watched from the control booth, satisfied that this new artist was following instructions. "He's got an interesting sound," Ed told his producers. "Different but not threatening. This should work fine." But Boo's manager noticed something troubling during the rehearsal. Boo seemed detached, going through the motions without his usual passion. After the rehearsal, he pulled Boo aside. "You didn't look comfortable out there. Are you okay with this?" Boo looked at his manager with an expression of quiet determination. "I'm going to be fine tonight. Everything's going to work out exactly the way it should." That evening, as the live broadcast began, Ed introduced his guests with his characteristic professional authority. The show proceeded normally through the first acts: a comedian, a singer, an acrobat team. Standard Ed Sullivan Show fare that America had come to expect. Finally, it was time for Boone Diddley. Ed walked to his mark and delivered his introduction. "Ladies and gentlemen, here's a young man with a very interesting sound. He's going to sing 16 tons for us tonight. Boo Diddley." Boo walked onto the stage carrying his rectangular guitar, looking calm and focused. The studio audience applauded politely, unsure what to expect from this unfamiliar performer. Boo positioned himself at the microphone, adjusted his guitar, and looked out at the audience. Then, instead of the opening chords to 16 tons, he began playing the unmistakable rhythm of his hit song Boone Diddley. In the control booth, Ed's face went white. His assistant turned to him in panic. "That's not 16 tons. That's his own song." Ed's mind raced. This was live television. 50 million people were watching. He couldn't stop the performance without creating a scene that would be more damaging than letting it continue. He was trapped, forced to watch as Boone Diddley openly defied him in front of the largest audience in television. Boo began singing. Boo Diddley bought his babe a diamond ring. His voice was confident, his guitar playing was masterful, his stage presence was magnetic. The studio audience, initially confused, began responding to the infectious rhythm and Boo's charismatic performance. Ed watched in fury and grudging admiration as Boo delivered a performance that was undeniably powerful. This wasn't just defiance, this was artistry. Boo was showing America something they'd never seen before, a completely original musical vision that was impossible to ignore. The song built to its climactic finish, with Boo's guitar creating sounds that seemed to come from another world. When he hit the final chord, the studio audience erupted in applause that was far more enthusiastic than their polite response when he'd walked on stage. Ed stood in the wings, his face a mask of controlled rage. As Boo finished and the audience continued applauding, Ed made a split-second decision. He would not walk out to shake Boo's hand, as was his custom with every performer. Instead, he would let Boo leave the stage without acknowledgement, a clear signal to everyone in the industry that Boo Diddley had been marked for exile. But Boo didn't seem fazed by Ed's snub. He nodded to the audience, gave a small bow and walked off stage with the dignity of someone who had just accomplished exactly what he'd set out to do. The moment the cameras stopped rolling, Ed stormed backstage. He found Bo in the hallway, calmly putting his guitar in its case. "What the hell did you think you were doing out there?" Ed demanded, his voice tight with fury. Bo looked up at Ed with calm eyes. "I was performing my music for your audience, Mr. Sullivan. I specifically told you to sing 16 tons. We rehearsed 16 tons. You agreed to sing 16 tons." "No," Bo replied quietly. "You told me to sing 16 tons. I never agreed to anything." Ed stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Do you understand what you've done? Do you understand that I can make sure you never appear on television again? Not just my show, any show. I have that power." Bo stood up, meeting Ed's eyes directly. "Mr. Sullivan, with all due respect, I came here to share my music with America. Not Tennessee Ernie Ford's music. My music. If that means I never get invited back to television, then that's a price I'm willing to pay. You'll never work on television again," Ed said, his voice cold with finality. "Never. You can count on that." Bo nodded calmly. "I figured as much, but 50 million people just heard Bo Diddley for the first time. That was worth it." Ed stared at Bo for a long moment, struggling between admiration for Bo's artistic courage and fury at his professional betrayal. Finally he turned and walked away, without another word. The reaction to Bo Diddley's Sullivan performance was immediate and complex. The show's phone lines were flooded with calls from viewers who were either outraged by Bo's defiance or thrilled by his music. Radio stations across the country were suddenly playing Bo Diddley, curious about this artist who had been bold enough to defy Ed Sullivan on live television. Record sales spiked dramatically. Within a week, Bo Diddley had climbed higher on the charts than it had ever been before. The television exposure, even under controversial circumstances, had introduced Bo's music to millions of new listeners. But Ed Sullivan kept his word. Bo Diddley was banned from The Ed Sullivan Show permanently. More significantly, Ed used his industry influence to ensure that Bo was shut out of major television opportunities for years. The price of artistic integrity was professional exile. Years later, in interviews, both men reflected on that night with complex emotions. Ed, speaking in 1970, admitted Bo Diddley was one of the most talented performers I ever booked. But talent doesn't excuse betrayal. He made me look foolish in front of 50 million people. I couldn't let that stand. Bo, in a 1975 interview, was unrepentant. Ed Sullivan wanted me to be somebody else on his show. He wanted me to sing white music to make white people comfortable. I couldn't do that. My music was about being proud of who I was, where I came from. If I'd sung 16 tons, I would have been betraying my own people, my own culture. The most poignant reflection came from Ed in one of his final interviews before his death in 1974. By then, rock music had completely transformed popular culture, and artists like Bo Diddley were recognized as pioneers who had shaped the sound of a generation. Looking back, Ed said quietly, "I understand why Bo did what he did. He wasn't trying to humiliate me. He was trying to be honest about his art. But at the time it felt like a personal attack. Maybe if I had been more flexible, more willing to let artists express themselves authentically, things could have been different." "Do you regret banning him?" the interviewer asked. Ed paused for a long moment. "I regret that we couldn't find a way to respect each other's positions. Bo Diddley was a revolutionary artist. Maybe he needed to revolutionize television too. Maybe I was too rigid to see that." The story of Ed Sullivan and Bo Diddley's betrayal represents one of the most significant moments in early rock and roll television. It was a collision between the old entertainment industry's need for control and the new music's demand for authentic expression. Bo's decision to defy Ed Sullivan wasn't just about one song. It was about the right of black artists to represent themselves honestly on national television, to refuse to be sanitized or diminished for mainstream consumption. Ed's reaction, while understandable from a business perspective, represented the entertainment establishment's resistance to cultural change. His power was built on control, and Bo's defiance threatened the foundation of that control. Both men paid a price for their collision. Bo lost access to the biggest platform in television, limiting his mainstream success for years. Ed learned that the artists who would define the future of popular music wouldn't be controlled by traditional industry power structures. But the lasting impact of that November night in 1955 was that it demonstrated the power of artistic integrity. Bo Diddley's willingness to sacrifice his television career for the right to be himself on stage inspired countless other artists to demand authentic representation. If this story of artistic courage and professional consequences moved you, hit that subscribe button and tell us. Have you ever had to choose between opportunity and authenticity? Sometimes standing up for who you are costs everything, but it's the only way to maintain your soul.